Welcome, everyone. I'm Petra Richterová. I am the founding director of the Robert Farris Thompson Maroon Institute for Afro-Diasporic Arts. And we are at session 7. And we have Will Calhoun and Saki Mafundikwa. Will Calhoun's talk is titled Halographica, Sound, Space, and the Fabric of Reality. And Saki's talk is titled Explosion of Writing Systems and Typography in Africa. We're honored to have them here today. And the format will be Will will share his talk first, then we'll go to Saki, and then we'll have an opportunity to invite them to speak together. And then towards the end, we open it up to Q&A. So those of you that are here, and a big shout out to, I see Ivor, who's one of the advisors for the Institute. We have Dr. Daniels here. Wonderful to see you. So towards the end, we will open it up for Q&A. I see John Santos is coming in here. And I also wanted to share that Will, who will present shortly, is on the advisory board of the Institute. So we're honored to have him participate today. And we have Adam Rudolph just coming in, another brilliant percussionist. So let me break it down. So Will Calhoun, Grammy Award-winning drummer, scholar, photographer, and all-around innovative thinker, is celebrated for his work with the band Living Color. He will explore rhythm as a site of political, spiritual, and social transformation. His presentation will reflect on sound as a carrier of ancestral intelligence. Zimbabwean graphic designer and scholar Saki Mafundikwa, a leading authority on African writing systems and design, responds by examining visual language, typography, and signification as parallel systems of meaning. Together, they will trace rhythmic and graphic forms as technologies of memory. And today's session will be co-hosted by Professor C. Daniel Dawson. And I'd like to invite Will to begin.
Okay, so I'm going to give a little brief history to everyone. I am a Bronx-born New Yorker. The photograph you see there is the street renaming after my mother, Annie Mae Calhoun. She was the woman in the community that was responsible for a lot of the after-school programs, helping a lot of folks from the Caribbean, from Africa, and from Eastern Europe with immigration, enrolling their children in school. She organized a lot of SAT, PSAT programs, chess clubs, investment banking for the community. And our house became the rehearsal space, art space for the community. So I want to begin with this photograph because this is kind of where it all began for me when it comes to culture and music and rhythm. A lot of great musicians from my community. For those who may or may not know, Steve Jordan lived around the corner from me. He went into the CBS orchestra, NBC orchestra, excuse me, at the age of 17. Raymond Chu's keyboard player, lived around the corner from me. He graduated from high school and went on to play with Ashford and Simpson, musical director, and Diana Ross and a few other people. So this community had a lot of great artists in it. And our parents kind of really kept us focused on both academics and the arts. That's where it began for me. And from that point on, growing up there, going to the Vanguard and jazz venues, other jazz venues, Madison Square Garden also, and being a punk rocker and getting into CBGBs and having a lot of being in the Bronx. I'm in the northeast section of the Bronx near City Island, Orchard Beach. They had the jam sessions out there with a lot of Latin cats with drums. All of these things had a major impact on me becoming a drummer. And certainly someone you may know, his name is Pumpkin, Errol Pumpkin Bedwood, fantastic drummer, classical pianist, who forged the beginning of hip hop, sampling, writing music, composing music. He was Costa Rican, and he put in these kind of Caribbean cultures with the hip hop flavor to what became an industry of hip hop around 1970, 1971. So that community is where my concepts for rhythm, art, language, and culture come from. I'm very proud of it. And last year, July 26th, the borough of the Bronx, the city of New York, allowed us to have this ceremony to rename the street after my mom. So I just wanted to start with that piece because it's a very important part of my of my growth and my growing up. So I'm going to move on from there and get into my travel. I do play still with the band Living Color. It's a Grammy-winning band. Living Color has allowed me to travel the world and allowed me to stay in those places and do research. I always wanted to know about rhythm and drumming and how it affects me as a person, how it affects our brains, how we operate, how rhythm vibrates in our bodies for ceremonies, for healing, and so many other things. My first stop that got my attention was Brazil. And here's a picture of me in Rio. And this is the art district. It's a fabulous paintings in that area. But I was down there with Living Color for Rock in Rio and got turned on to meeting Carlinhos Brown, great percussionist. He has a great high school of the city where there's a lot of percussionists and drummers. He helps out in the community to stay off of the crime scenes and the drugs and to focus more on the rhythm. And it's a lot of African culture there. And one of the rhythms that got under my skin was maracatu, which is originally from Angola, but maracatu is a rhythm that was only played for the queen and to go to war. When I first heard this rhythm, immediately I needed to research and study it. And I stayed in Rio, and then I went up to Bahia, and from Bahia, I went up to Recife to even learn more about the indigenous drumming and music, even from the Amazon, the Forró Indian music, and how those rhythms work and how they shape me. One of the important parts about rhythm for me is the past, present, and future, how so many things I'm still learning are connected to blues and jazz and funk, electronic music, but also it's the future of this Afrofuturism. A lot of those patterns are 10,000 years old. They're really old patterns, beats for healthy pregnancies, beats for rain, beats for war. And there's pieces of these beats that were taken off that arrived in New Orleans, arrived in Jamaica, arrived in Spanish Harlem, and created also scenes like Ornette Coleman talks about harmonics, how you have a sound, and then there's the one sound, and then you have the other sounds that bounce off of that sound. Those are also part of the language of that first sound. Same thing with rhythm and patterns. So that was the real intricate part of my research, but also while studying the rhythm, it was very important for me to visit museums and families, stay with families, and do a lot of research on the rhythms and how they relate to culture, how they relate to parenting, leaders, religion, spirituality, and so on. So you'll see a few pictures here of me in the Rio mostly area, and I'm stopping into galleries and I'm getting a lot of information about Afro-Brazilian sculptors and painters. You may have heard of the gentleman Emmanuel Arujo, and he's a fabulous artist that I met through Dr. George Preston via Petra. And he has an extraordinary line of work, but you should just look the gentleman up and check out what he's doing. But Emmanuel Arujo is one person who really turned me on to the history of Afro-Brazilian culture. Some of the things you see here, my local stops, the drum shops. This gentleman here is a very popular, I'm going to say one of the more the older school, we call them the OGs of the drumming community that's combining Brazilian drumming and also combining a lot of Angolan drumming and even parts of patterns from Senegal and from Mali. And he has a school, a samba school, a drum school, and a clinic school. And I was invited there to perform with him and his son and other local drummers so we can share this information. So that's a huge part of the research is actually being involved in the research and not just taking photographs and making recordings, sitting down and playing with these gentlemen and learning these patterns, where they come from, practicing them, recording them, and implementing that into my own life, implementing that into my jazz performances, my performances with Living Color, etc. So these are beautiful moments of education. Here I am in a school called Darwe Mulungo, Daruemalungo, Darwe Mulungo. It's run by this gentleman named Mianoche. This is a Brazilian school in Pernambuco, in a very poor part of Pernambuco, that is built for young children to learn about their Angolan culture. It's a fascinating school built by hand, bricks, tin roof. And it was tear-jerking for me to go there to see this all done by the community. The moms are teaching the young ladies and guys about painting, costumes, dressing, planning food, all indigenous Afro-Brazilian culture. It was mind-blowing to be at this school. And since I was down there at that time on a more commercial aspect with Live in Color at Rock in Rio, I invited MTV and a lot of the press at that time to please come up north to come check this school out. And I'm glad they did, because shortly after that visit, they had a terrible storm and the bricks were blown down and the roof was torn down, and the school kind of imploded. And a lot of those commercial entities put the money together to go back to rebuild it stronger so these children can continue to learn. But it's very impressive to see them dance, play drums, learn how to cook the food, and it's just all done by one family. So this was a really important part. And maracatu is something you have to hear. For me, it was very infectious. It was one of those patterns that I heard, and I felt like my blood started going the other direction. I immediately wanted to get contact with this culture and this drumming to learn the history of it. And it's part of my everyday life now. So this is a photo during one of the lunch breaks, and I just wanted to ask a few of the younger students, of course, who their favorite football stars were, what kind of music they liked, and then I got ambushed by the class, and it was a beautiful ambush. And then everyone telling me about their parents and what they were interested in life. So it was a beautiful moment. I'm sure they're now all grown adults, but this is a school called the Dare Malungo School, and very, very impressive work done by Mianoch and his mother and his aunt and his sisters and the other women in the community. It's excellent. Petra, you want to jump to the next one? Okay, so in speaking about, before we get to this tune, and speaking about the culture and the music and me coming back here and trying to marry the things, I wrote this tune called Umoja, which means unity. I wrote this tune while in Brazil, while in that city of Pernambuco, after watching the children play, and it talks about unity. And I wanted to combine this dancing melody. I'm using a Nigerian clay drum. It's called the Udu drum. That's a drum originally used for feminine energy. That's the wave pattern of playing that drum. It's very powerful feminine energy, and combine a little bit of what I learned with writing a composition in jazz. And I'm joined here by a great pianist, Orrin Evans, the late great Pharoah Sanders on saxophone, the late great Wallace Roney on trumpet, and Buster Williams on bass. And this piece is called Umoja. We're only going to play the beginning of it, but I just want you to hear the improvisational side and then how it marries in with the actual composition piece. Thank you. Thank you. That's Buster playing a little bit there. But you can check out this recording. This is called Native Lands. I put together this is a record and DVD at the time. It's 2005. And I wanted to put a record together with different artists that combined my journeys. So I made my own DVD with the help of a lot of folks, and I wrote this music. So you can pick that piece up. Next stop on the love train of rhythm and patterns and research is Mali, which became my adopted home. I was invited there to play a festival, and I wind up staying, meeting Umu Sangari, but most importantly, the gentleman on my left, your right, is Shaktidian Sect. Shek is one of the only master musicians, I think, on the planet that understands all the languages of African music. East, I've been with Shek in the desert, East, North, South, whoever we played with Tuareg musicians. We played with the hunters who don't play with outside musicians, and Shek knows the language. Many of the hunters were actually shocked. But Mali was life-changing for me. This was a place where a lot of the blues, the history of the blues really hit me between there and Timbuktu, which I did an amazing drive from Bamako to Timbuktu. It took about 4 days. I got lost about 200 times in flat tires, but anyway, it was worth it. It was a fantastic trip. And during that journey, I was able to meet with and play with Tuareg musicians, stop in Mopti, stop in Jenny, go to the Dogon culture. The Dogon drumming is really, really incredible. And climb the top of the mountains and see what these geniuses saw in the sky, which I couldn't see, but we were just talking about the stars and the constellations. So all of these things tie into rhythm, the planets, how they move, the music, the food, the drumming, everything was kind of tied into the same language and conversation. So Mali, I wind up staying almost half a year after meeting Shek. Shek introduced me to a lovely woman who became my favorite artist after that, Umu Sangari. Umu Sangari was actually very impressed with the clay drum that you heard me play in the previous track, and she asked me to bring it into the studio with her, and I wind up recording with her, which was a totally dream come true. She didn't believe me. I had all of her music, but Umu is a brilliant woman and even a more brilliant human being. She turned me on to so much music. She told me I had to research. I had to go to the desert. I must hang out and talk with the hunters to get this really rare music. And she owns a hotel in Bamako, and she allowed me to stay at that hotel while I did all my research. I would stay there for a week and then get in the car and drive another 6 days and stay away for a month and come back. So Umu's hotel became my home base and a gorgeous place for me to be able to work, bring all my research back, open up my hard drive, stack things, learning about music and record. Her and Salif Keita, who I'm sorry I didn't mention was on your left. And Salif allowed me to use his recording studio to do all of my work. He told me, Will, it's your place. He opened up his studio, and I asked Salif, do you want to produce something? He said, nope. He just listened, and he came by and told me to keep working. So those three folks in Mali were huge in my research still, and living there even part-time, with Salif Keita and Shaktidian Sect and Umu Sangari. And then my real dream came true where Umu asked me to play drum set on her record. A lot of her recordings have just djembe and shakers. And she said, I really want to hear you play drums on one of my tracks. And the label was against it, and the producer was against it. And I said, well, what do you want me to play, Umu? She said, you're from the Bronx, you play with Living Color. I want you to bring that flavor to my track. And don't listen to what anybody, I want you, don't play it for him before. Put the headphones on, vibe the song, and after 2 or 3 takes, we came up with something magical. So, Petra, you can play this wonderful track called Susumba, and this was a huge honor for me to be able to, A, play with Uma, but also to bring my own rhythmic analysis to this music.
kele na mirila lale nyana miri kojula me balale sonora lale nyana ngale lale nyana kone kele na mori kele ni ala eterilu e sonora lale nyana ngale lale nyana ne bilale kele na kisila lale nyana miri kochama echelale sonora lale nyana ngale lale nyana ne bilale kele na hamina lale nyana miri kochama etelale sonora lale nyana ngale lale nyana kone kele na mori kele ni ala yiri jublani ala umbe musoke yiri jublani jigintanya yemo kela yiri judomani ala ononne sira yiri jublani umbe musoke yiri jublani ala makenintanya yemo kela yiri judomani na ononne sira dunuya
Not much you could say to that. That's just the great Umusungari, and it was such an honor to be able to bring my vibe to this music, this wonderful music, this Malian music, and to stay there pretty much for. I mean, I've been going back and forth ever since, but I've been kind of living there part-time, learning a lot about that culture. On the tail end of my research and the tail end of my touring, and even touring with Umu and working with Salif and working with other great artists. There's a beautiful blues artist, Baseku Kuyati, magnificent balafon player, Lasana. And there was a very important gentleman named Tumaina Diabate who recently passed away, who was a core master, and his younger brother is Madu Amadou. These are gentlemen that I play with now when I go back over there and tour and play. And this also led me to some of the younger generation of Mali and wanting to produce and work with younger artists that are interested in people like Lauryn Hill or Mos Def and other artists that I work with over here in the States. So Fatou Diawara is a really, really popular, I think, huge star now. When I was touring with Umu Sangari, she was a background singer, and she was in the back of the bus every day playing her guitar and talking about how she wanted to eventually get into doing her own thing, but she's doing a fabulous job now. So she reached out to me 2 years ago, I was staying in San Francisco at the time, and she wanted me to produce a music video for her, which I've never produced a music video before. But we talked about the concept. I'm playing on the track. Once again, we want to try to marry this kind of like New York funky blues vibe with some of the more popular Malian music. And I played on this recording, and I got a few friends together from the California side to help me produce this film and record this video. And I produced this track. And check it out. It's really fun. She's fantastic. She's blowing up now if you haven't heard of her already. And she's like my little sister. And this allowed me to get into another aspect of more commercial rhythm, still using some ancestral sounds and concepts, and putting it into a more commercial sound to reach some younger people. So that piece really, in getting into rhythm, it does combine a lot of the ancestral stuff. It does also got a little bit of hip hop vibe, a little bit of the Hendrix situation, and combining the cultures there and combining the rhythms there with some of the 60s period, some of the graffiti period, some of the trippy sounds, and also a little bit of the ancestral sounds. And her playing is really kind of in a Malian style of guitar. So that piece was really important for me, just in remaining in contact and researching the indigenous part of Malian culture and the drumming and the rhythm, but also wanted to move forward with some things. And in speaking of moving forward, is a really crucial part of studying rhythm that a lot of drummers kind of leave out of the conversation, and that's technology and science and mathematics, and how those things play a role in rhythm, how they play a role in you studying and combining things, listening to sounds, checking out images. I began to experiment with wanting to perform live with light sticks and doing different type of things on stage that you didn't see me or the drum set or the band anymore. I wanted to deal with images and sound and using kind of sonic equations and measuring the light and improvising off of the measured light in those images. And during COVID, I had an opportunity to be an adjunct professor at New York University, where I was teaching electronic composers class. And in this class, after working on this class, I decided to put together some of my own ideas and concepts about science, music, and sound. These things are maybe Petra, I'll put it in the chat where you can find them online and watch them yourself. It's really good to listen to with headphones as well. But it's a series called Psychic. And I love science and I love talking about math and equations and African symbolism and what it means and how those equations work together to make what I consider to be Afrofuturism art, things that combine 10,000-year-old patterns with newer ideas and ancient rhythms and modern technology and modern sounds. So these are a little bit of brief sound examples of venturing into a new rhythmic territory where I want to deal with visuals and I want to deal with sound and the patterns at the same time, simultaneously combining those elements. Okay, so that instrument is actually an electronic frame drum. It's designed like an Iranian frame drum where it has a plastic head on it and has electronic strode. So when I touch the head and I scratch the head, I can get sounds and pitches out of it. I wanted to remove myself and the drum from the image because the sound, the images are based on how I'm playing the sound. That's the reaction. That's the visual reaction to the sounds that are being put out there. So this is like a combination piece. I tried a few different variations on this, but I love electronics. I'm a geek when it comes to that. And I also love studying indigenous drumming and indigenous patterns and rhythms as well. This is a concept of marrying them too. So these are 4 very short segments. Petra, you can go to the second one now. That one's titled Aboriginal Dreamtime. I did spend quite a bit of time in the outback of Australia with a very famous artist named Jagamara, which you should look up. Tremendous. He's kind of the rock star, Andy Warhol of that field, great Aboriginal painter. And I was able to go out for about 6 or 8 months, which I can't explain to you what happens to your mind in the outback. It's like someone opens up your head and takes your brain out and puts a new fresh one in. I saw amazing things that were really old. I saw trees that the stump went up 200 feet, then the tree opened up. A lot of amazing things. Some of them you would think I was insane to explain. There was about 275 languages or possibly more. And I went in the 90s or early 2000s, there's only about 38 languages left, because a lot of their culture, unfortunately, has been dismantled, destroyed. But what a amazing experience laying down at night. I slept outside every night with a swag. It's called the swag, a sleeping bag. And I was able to look at the sky and it looked like that particular image. So a lot of the rhythm, how the sky moves, the way the sun goes down and the flames, it looks like it's on fire, but it also looks like almost like a Martha Graham dance company. So we'll go on to the next one. Any sound that you're hearing, any tones and pitches of drones are drums. Okay, there's no bass, there's no guitar. These are drums. I'm just running them through effects to give them another meaning and another definition. That is a flute I'm playing there. It's a Chinese flute called the husuli, and it's a Southern Chinese flute, often used in operas. And it's something that I went in China, I went to study to learn how to play. It sounds so African to me. So I wanted to combine this kind of Southern Chinese opera flute with these images and these sounds, but all the sounds are coming from drums. They're just bent and tweaked and put through a lot of not so much, but just a little bit of machinery to change the mathematical equations of the sounds to make the rhythms flow in a different way. So you're just hitting a djembe as an animal skin. It vibrates. Our brains and our bodies are really tuned to this. They're shaped for that sound. Digital sounds kind of go almost a bit against the analog vibration. So I'm trying to combine the two, to have the analog indigenous sounds with the electronic sounds to see it, to really, for me first, how it impacts my rhythm, how I breathe, how I think, how I hear. And then I want to project that out into the audience. And I've tried it with children in schools. It's got amazing responses all the way up to doing solo art gallery shows. So this is what the experiment of rhythm and movement is. And I think there's one more, Petra. This one's called String Theory. Thank you, Petra, for that one. So I want to close with the last addition to my research with rhythm and life, and that's with poetry and spoken word, and how words tie in with rhythms, how you speak, the accents that you have, the tempo, and the rhyme that you have when you're speaking. One of my favorite human beings and great writers and poets on the planet is Quincy Troop. He's a very dear friend of mine. And we have the same birthday. We share that as well. So that's kind of our kind of yearly hang, him and I and Danny Glover. But I wanted to try to take this electronic acoustic music and the visuals. Now you'll see how I'm performing some of these things, drumsticks that light up, and I extract myself often and the drum set, and you're only seeing the streaks of light. But this piece combines both a little bit of his poetry and my music. And Petra, I'm not sure what is that. Is this more Mali stuff here, or?
No, this is just the way
Okay.
this particular piece with Quincy queued
Oh,
up.
wow.
So whenever you're ready, I'll just hit play.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
So Quincy doing an awesome job of writing Miles Davis's autobiography, one of my favorite books to reread. I put together a piece called Sketches of Troop. So it's the Sketches of Spain title, but with Quincy reading his poem, and I improvised on electronic and acoustic drums and I photographed and videotaped myself playing with these light sticks and made a collage out of all the sounds. All the photography and artwork is mine. This is from my research and driving up to Timbuktu. And the digital images are from a series I have called Rhythm Art, which you can find at calhounart.com. And that's an experimentation with sound, light, and visuals. So here's the piece. This is called Sketches of Troop. By the way, this is the frame drum. You'll see a picture of me playing that electric frame drum coming up.
This poem has holes stitched into it, as our speech, which created poetry in the first place, lacerated, wounded words that strike out original meaning, bleeding into language, hemorrhaging out of thick or thin mouths, has empty spaces and silences sewn into it. My poems have holes sewn into them. Bottom out on the far side of consciousness, where words of all the world's poets go and whisper absolute silence. This poem has deep holes stitched into it, and their meanings have the deadly suck of quicksand, the irreversible pull of earth to any skydiver, the conscious puzzle tracking arms of justice. My poems have holes, and they run searching for lights at the end of tunnels. the flight of sunlight, at the flight.
Oh, thank you. That last photograph is kind of deep because I was in Senegal, and that's, for those who know, that's the door of no return. And I asked to go do a tour and take photographs of the door of no return and that slave prison alone. And the gentleman said, "You can come back now." Nobody was there. And ironically, one person was there. I don't know if you know this singer, an artist named Somi, Somi, but that's Somi standing at the door, crying, looking out at the Atlantic Ocean. And I just happened to be coming in to film, take that shot, and she stepped into it. That's the nature of, for me, rhythm, how it relates to life, how it relates to language, the science behind rhythm spiritually, what it means for us ancestrally, Afrofuturism, where science and technology and rhythm is going to take us into the future, how it's going to take us into the future. I think it's the last safe language left to bring this planet somewhat together. I think we tried everything else. But I really appreciate this opportunity, Petra, and thank you everyone for watching, to get a little bit of piece of background of my continuous research and love for this art and this music and for the true definition of rhythm.
Thank you so much, Will, for your intergalactic, multidisciplinary work. So we have many questions for you, by the way, Daniel,
Okay,
but I'd like to just go right ahead and
sure.
I'd like to invite Saki Mafundikwa to present right now. Saki is actually live from a small town in Zimbabwe, which is miraculous. And again, his presentation is titled Explosion of Writing Systems and Typography in Africa. And then after Saki presents, we'll have you two dialogue. And again, we'll open it up for the Q&A. So let's see where Saki is. Saki, are you out there? You
I'm
are.
here.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Welcome.
So
Thank you.
all right. Well, just a correction there. I'm not in a small town. I'm at the farm, rural Zimbabwe. I'm like 80 kilometers from Harare, the capital city. I moved here a year and a half ago. And I've always wanted to live here. I've had this piece of land for 21 years. And I always wanted to come and live here. So I did that. I made the move last year. And things were tough a little bit at the beginning because I didn't have connectivity. But thanks to, can you believe I'm going to say this, to Elon Musk for for Starlink, now I am online. Okay. So anyway, I'm going to give you the story of my life, basically, and I'm going to tell it through my graphic design and my love for writing systems and typography. So I usually start with this map of Africa just to show folks where Zimbabwe is. And I usually use this in the United States where there isn't all that much knowledge about the rest of the world, especially Africa. When I tell people I'm from Zimbabwe, someone will say, "Oh, is that Nigeria?" No, it's not. It's Zimbabwe. So I grew up here. Zimbabwe is named after this structure, this, well, they call it ruins, but it used to be a city, an ancient city. And it is an architectural design and architectural wonder, actually, because all these stones are not held together by mortar. They're just freestanding, put together. That's where the ingenuity is. And it's a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Here, my son standing at the temple there, just to give you an idea of its size. And Zimbabwe is also well known for its stone sculpture. And I guess because we are called Zimbabwe, which means house is made of stone. So I guess stone is etched into our DNA. Well, this is my father. On a visit to San Francisco, I had to take him to this store because he's a shaman himself. He was a healer. And so it was important for me to take him there to see what he could pick up, and we picked up some stuff there. This is me. I like to think that my dad was a really cool dude, you know, and I guess I took that, I inherited that from him. As a young man, I had dreams of becoming a rock star, which my dad didn't like that much, but I really liked it. And in this photo here, I was ready to leave the country because it was called Rhodesia. This was 1978, and I was of conscription age, which means that I was going to be conscripted into the Rhodesian army, something I didn't look forward to because my young brother had left for Mozambique to train as a guerrilla to come back and liberate me. So the thought of going to fight against him didn't appeal to me that much. So I was really ready for revolution. I came across this postcard in London in the 80s, and I really like it because it kind of, I think a lot of young Black men and women can relate. You are not dangerous as long as you look like him. But then when you start sprouting locks, well, they say, I guess he likes music. But when your locks grow out of hand like wheels, then you need surveillance. So I'll start with this quote by Abu Nwagbogu, a Nigerian, an international Nigerian curator. He says design is oldest and the most deeply rooted creative expression on the continent. Traditional masks and artifacts were design objects intended for practical or spiritual use, reproduced traditionally by craftspeople and artisans of varying ability. So design has always been in Africa. Here's Malcolm X with a quote of his that's, I think, very important about the importance of culture and history in our lives. So my story, to an appreciation of African writing systems, began at Yale in 1983 when I was applying for enrollment in their master's program in graphic design. I had gone to Indiana University for my bachelor's, Bloomington, Indiana, and my professors there had encouraged me to apply for graduate school at Yale. So I was interviewed. I was lucky enough, I think, very fortunate to be interviewed by Alvin Eisenman, who was the founder of the department and the director. So it went like this. I walked in and they looked at me and he said, "You from Africa, right?" And I said, "Yes." He said, "Which country?" I said, "Zimbabwe." He said, "What language do you speak?" And I said, "Shona." And he said, "Is it written?" And I found that to be odd. So I said, "Yeah." And he was quite excited and he said, "What are the characters like?" And that stopped me. Nobody had ever asked me that question and I never thought about it. I thought the writing was, everybody used Roman alphabets, and I said, you mean Roman alphabet? And he was visibly disappointed. And he said, "No, I have heard that there are societies in Africa that have designed their own writing systems." I was like, "Really?" I was like, okay, so let me look into it. And I made a mental note that this was going to be my thesis if I got in. I eventually got in. Um, and um, Alvin told me about Robert Farris Thompson. He said there's a professor here, but you have to meet because if he finds out that there was an African student here and I didn't introduce him to to him, he would be upset. So I went, I made contact with Thompson, and he invited me to lunch at Timothy Dwight, which was he was a master there. And during lunch, I told him that I wanted, well, I would have been happy if he would be my thesis advisor, but he said he was too busy, and that all I had to do was get his book, Flash of the Spirit. He said everything is in there, which I did, of course, and I loved that book. But at the end of the my studies there, my thesis was read by Paul Rand, who is considered the grandfather of American graphic design, and see how much he missed the point. How much I wished um, Professor Thompson had been my advisor. I think that this speaks for itself, and I don't need to get into that. But there was Bradbury Thompson, who is this man here. He is also another icon, another titan, American graphic design. And I really loved this when I saw this because this was Afrika. You know, it's a mask made up of typography, and it spoke to me in a way that nothing else has ever done that. So that was Yale. And while I was at Yale, I had some fun. Joy, I mean, I can remember I was talking about Joy, one of the talks, previous talks. So this was my first year at Yale. Um, they had what they called the Beaux-Arts Ball at um, Halloween, and it was a competition. The theme was primitivism, and tongue in cheek. I was like, okay, I'm gonna look like a warrior, an African warrior. So I painted my face and made a shield, and I won. That competition. So Yale wasn't just like about learning, but it was also about having fun. And this is graduation. And mind you, I graduated in 1985, and Zimbabwe had been independent for 5 years. And I cannot tell you how proud and how happy I was to be the first ever African in the graphic design program, and to be from Zimbabwe. So I had a tourist flag that I showed, and you can see all these people here are my classmates. They were very happy for me. And just before graduation, Ben Mapp, he's someone I consider a brother, my best friend. We went to the African American Students Association, and we were honored there for our contribution to that. Now, this photo in the bottom here, that's us 30 years later. You see what 30 years can do. Anyway, Ben and I shared this love for music, and I think our tastes were very similar. We loved, jazz. Um, I should have said at the top that as a young man growing up in Rhodesia, I had dreams of becoming a rock and roll star. We loved what we heard on the radio, which was hard rock, British bands like Black Sabbath, Deep Purple, Uriah Heep, etc., etc. But when I got to the United States, my tastes changed drastically. I discovered jazz, loved Miles and Coltrane, discovered Sister Rosetta Tharpe, whom I think really should be credited as creating one of the African Americans who created rock and roll. Nina Simone, of course, Bob Marley, number one fan, I think, in the world. Jimi Hendrix. Then I discovered Sun Ra, who is just out of this world, and of course Fela Kuti, also an African freedom fighter. And then I started to read. I had friends who turned me on to different books. The first book was the autobiography of Malcolm X. Really changed my life. I was just like, whoa, okay. Then, people like Zora Neale Hurston, I read Their Eyes Were Watching God, Frantz Fanon, Angela Davis, Langston Hughes, Billie Holiday, of course, Nina Simone. And then I discovered something I had been loving for the longest time, the sounds of New Orleans. When I was a kid, we listened to Fats Domino, and I just loved the vibe, So when I came to America and discovered more of, that sound, really just went crazy over it. And in terms of books, I found this anthology and bought it, and it just, I don't know what to say, except that I love that book. I've kept it over the years, and it still can be found online, and I would encourage people to read that book. Of course, Thomas Sankara from Burkina Faso was a big. I was a big fan of his tenure as president. And then I discovered that the Meters, we loved the Meters, in the 70s when we heard the Meters, songs like Ain't No Use and all that, but we never knew that they were from New Orleans, So when I discovered that, it was like, whoa. So I also found out that they worshipped at the altar of Fess, Professor Longhair. So that was a great discovery. And of course, Prince. Oh my God, people know Prince as an R&B singer, but he's one of those musicians that I think he's just like amazing. Great guitar player, could play anything. Most of his music, he played all the instruments himself. And then of course, JB, hardest working man in the business, in the industry. Then I discovered Jean-Michel Basquiat, and it was just like crazy, Like I'm really now at that stage where I need surveillance, okay? I was ready for the revolution. Then I went to Cuba, researching my book, my African alphabets book. And upon arrival, I met this artist who was specializing in what he called Abakwa art. And we hit it off. And when I left the island, he gave me this poster that he did himself. And he had taken me to Havana Viejo, where I saw I think they're called El Diablitos, That's traditional, African traditional religion in Cuba. So my library began to change. I started looking for things that I could use in my practice. This book here, Ben, my friend Ben, map that I graduated with, he got me that book in San Francisco and sent it to me. It's a special, it's a book I value a lot. And so everything began to change. I began to understand that a lot of the stuff that we look down upon in Africa, you know, things that we think are backward, those are the things that are really that we should be looking at for inspiration. And the spirituality, textiles, and body art. So this is from a book about the Mbuti people. They used to be called derogatorily pygmies, but they were writing for forever, and we never thought of it as writing, but it is writing. And today, for us, for today's designers, we look back in our past for inspiration from symbols like this. Then after about 12 years after graduation in New York, teaching at places like Cooper Union, where I taught a class that I created called Writing Systems from Non-Western Societies, I decided to go back home and to open my country's first graphic design and new media college. And I called it the Zimbabwe Institute of Digital Arts. Digital is basically the confluence of visual arts and digital tools. And this is the logo that I designed, which was inspired by the Great Zimbabwe, these chevron shapes found at the Great Zimbabwe. So the college was small, but it had international impact. People all over, you know, were coming. This was Autodesk. They featured me in their magazine called Line Shape and Space, and invited me to speak in Las Vegas at one of the conferences that they have. These are my students. What I loved about the school was that it attracted everyone, you know, people from different backgrounds. And the class that I taught was a typography class. And I would give them this this project when they were really green, when they didn't know what typography was. I'll just say, draw some letter forms inspired by nature, and this is what they did. And then internationally, I started getting invited to different conferences. This was Ecograda conference in Turin, in Italy. And my workshop was them designing typefaces inspired by Africa. And Multiversal was the title, well, was the theme of the conference. So this is what they did. And then this was done by students in South Africa just before COVID at Greenside Design, College of Design. Again, working with students to design typefaces, something they had never done. And this one here is called the Cancer Font. This was done by a student whose sister was battling breast cancer. Then in 2013, TED called me and they invited me to Nairobi because for TED 23, they decided to go around the world so that audiences would pick the speakers for that. Well, I made the cut and ended up going to Los Angeles, to Long Beach for TED 23, the first Zimbabwean ever to speak at TED. And the reason I went there, they were interested in me, was the school that I started, the design academy that I started, and the book that I wrote on African writing systems. One of the highlights of my research was going to Cameroon to meet the king, Njoya, who was the grandson of the King Njoya here, who invented the writing system, the Bamum alphabet, at age 25 in 1896. And it looked like this. Symbols from Africa, from different parts of Africa. I was really I was intrigued by this pictograph from the Jokwe people in Angola, which tells the story of creation. Basically, this is humanity and the journey you take through life, the moon, the sun, and at the end, you die. Adinkra symbols from Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire, which represent proverbs and historical events, were writing, actually writing also. The Vai people of Liberia had their syllabary. Bantu is called actually, it's now called Nguni symbol writing from South Africa, which inspired the house paintings of the Ndebele people in northern South Africa. And here you see how that knowledge is passed down to young girls so they can become proficient at doing it also. But actually, the queen of that art form is Mama Esther Matlang, who's quite, she's an elder now, and all she does now, she doesn't do house painting anymore. All she does is paint luxury cars, do kind of like motifs on luxury cars. And all here it says, "All hail the Nkosikazi." Nkosikazi in Zulu means queen, so it's all hail the queen. Then my students now have gone on to different things in their lives, and I feel like a proud father who is showing off what his children have done. Nonsi, after Ziva, went to Yale, the same program that I graduated from, and she graduated from the MFA program and taught at different places on the East Coast. And on June 13, 2022, she was appointed director of that very graduate program that I went to. The third one, actually, after Alvin, was Sheila B. Bredefield. And Sheila, upon her retirement, Nonsi was hired, and she is the director as we speak. My son Simba is now an architect in New York after a stint in Seattle, a few years, just moved to New York and living in Harlem with his girlfriend. Christina is from Serbia, and her parents were living and working in Zimbabwe, so they sent her to me She was interested in photography and got into the film school in Cuba and is now an award-winning film editor in New York. Unfortunately, we lost this one. Claire lost the battle to lupus a few years ago when she was in grad school in South Africa. Farai was always interested in visual effects, which we taught at Ziva, and he's now working in Vancouver and has worked on films like Spider-Man No Way Home, Halo, Godzilla vs. Kong, and others. Simon was not my student, but he was inspired by my work, and he designs using Adinkra symbols. Osmond Chuma is another one who wasn't my student, but inspired by me. And I really, 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 really love this guy and his work. Pretty amazing. He designed this for the 60th anniversary of Nigerian independence, based on the mask, the queen, the ivory. So I helped him get into RISD, the Rhode Island School of Design, for his MFA. And this is some of the work that he did there. He calls this Great Zimbabwe font based on those chevron shapes from the Great Zimbabwe. This one is inspired by this mural in South Africa at a bank called Nedbank, and he designed a typeface from there. So for his thesis project, he designed a typeface, doing exactly what I've always wanted my students to do, and that is create a typeface for a language, and this is for Ndebele. Osmond is Ndebele, and so he designed this based on Ndebele traditional from the traditional life of Ndebele people. It's not done yet. It's a work in progress, but I love this. That it's an actual typeface that doesn't mimic the Roman alphabet. From Rwanda, Kwizera Mugisha got in touch with Osmond and asked him to help him develop a typeface that he called Umero. So this is what he sent to Osmond, sketches, and Osmond was able to help him to develop that into this typeface, a total typeface. And from there, this is usage, the typeface in usage. This is Kinyarwanda language. And yeah. So these are some of the current designers, typeface designers. This guy is from Nigeria. He's so cool. And a typeface that he designed. Batsirai Nzonga is from Zimbabwe. He was a teacher. He was once a teacher at Ziva. Now he works in Dubai in design. Some of the other designers, Taurai Mtake went to Ziva and he designed a typeface for Google, which is available in their Noto fonts package. Noto stands for no tofu. And because I was curious, what does noto mean? N-O-T-O. It means no tofu. Tofu is like when an image is low res and it develops these kind of like squares at the edges. They are called tofu in typography and type design. So noto just means no tofu. Their typefaces will never do that because they are open source, which means they are free. And Sebastian Garikai is also from Zimbabwe. So is Fungi Dube. These designers have all designed typefaces for Google. So from Cote d'Ivoire comes a designer called Munimona Jonah, and he was inspired by Adinkra symbols to design this typeface study called Adinkra Nouveau. Chepkep Mboy, right? He's the co-founder or the founder of an organization called Onio Culture, which is a practice about basically helping young people be inspired by their cultures. She's from East Africa, Kenya, I think. So I visited Ethiopia and was blown away by the rock temples of Lalibela. And the one thing that I kept thinking when I was at this place was, why don't we learn about this in the history books, whether it's in Africa or internationally, you know? So, as you know, in Ethiopia, they use Giz, a writing system, or sometimes called the Ethiopic writing system, which is used by people in Ethiopia and Eritrea. Mende from Sierra Leone, around that area. The Kikakui script is now available on Google Fonts on Noto. Vai from Liberia, very, very important writing system, ancient writing system. And Adlam from Guinea, which was designed or invented by the Berry brothers when they were 11 and 14 years old. They asked their father, why isn't their language Fulani? Why doesn't it have a writing system? Why do they use French for one and Roman alphabet? And their father said, design a writing system. And they took him seriously. I think he was just joking, but they ended up designing Adlam. So there are many type foundries in Africa. This is Tondi, type foundry from South Africa. And actually, type design is now being taught by different organizations in Africa. This is a Nigerian company called Type Africa. So typography in Africa is now a real thing. It is not about thinking about it, but people are doing it. And that's it. Thank you very much.
Wow, thank you, Saki, so much for being here, for joining us from your farm. We didn't know that we were going to learn about not only your history, but music and literature and all of these new creators. Thank you so much. So I just would like to invite you and Will in dialogue. There's just so much in common, I think, in terms of the kind of interdisciplinary nature, I think, of creativity as well. But so happy to connect you two.
Thank you. It's fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, when I was paired with Will, I had no idea who Will was. And when I Googled him and found out that he was a drummer for Living Color, I was just like over the moon. And our first conversation, I think, was about how much how our love for hard rock. And I told him that when I was a kid, they used to call me the heavy metal kid in Zimbabwe. So
It's
yeah,
fantastic.
those connections, man.
Honor
Yeah.
to meet you as well. And for me, there's so many interesting things I'm going to get back to you on because in the last I guess it's been more than 5 years now. I went to African ancestry to do my research on my family, to both matriarchal and patriarchal side, and I was 100% Sierra Leone and 97% Guinea-Bissau on the side. So I went during COVID to get my citizenship and passport, thanks to Dr. Gina Page and the African Ancestry Organization, and there for the first time, although I spent so much time in Mali and in Senegal and Morocco, to be in Sierra Leone and to meet people and meet family members and be shown places where my ancestors came from, and then this language and how it looks. And I have so many questions for you also outside of this conference about it. It's the visuals of the lettering also are very interesting shapes to me because shapes always remind me of patterns and patterns always remind me of rhythm. So when I see these dots and these curves, it just looks like uh, a 6/8 drum pattern or a 7/4 drum pattern, and Saki, some of it looks like heavy metal is also. So it's interesting for me to because people don't realize the history of things. So when you see an emblem from Mercedes-Benz or Coca-Cola or whatever it is, that there's an African history to all of these things, and people don't assimilate those two things together. But I was totally fascinated by all of them. But of course, the Sierra Leone pieces, they're kind of really the most interesting for me. And symbolism is very interesting in my research also, Saki, because in the outback of Australia, there were maybe 8 of the tribes that I was around don't communicate with the sun up by speaking. They use sign language or what we call telepathy. So there were interesting times when I was out there and people were moving their eyebrows around and waving their hands, and I was kind of going, okay, what's going on here? And that's how they communicate. And then when the sun goes down, it's like a different situation. I wasn't able to get all the details on it because I was only able to stay maybe 4 or 5 days with each tribe that I was with, and so much information came in from that. It was overwhelming. But I find the shapes and how they're set up, which looks like rhythmic equations to me, very interesting and germane to speaking into you being able to communicate with someone. And when you're playing a shape in music, if I'm playing a certain shape, maybe I'm playing with the bass player or a piano player, and we're not all on the same page, somebody throws a shape, and that shape becomes what we pay attention to. And oh, the song is a blues, or the song is at 5, or the song is at 3, or there's a shuffle, or it's a different kind. It's a Texas shuffle. It's a New Orleans shuffle. All of these things are dictated a lot of times on stage by simply throwing a shape. And there's a slang in rock and roll with throwing shapes, and that's when you're kind of getting carried away. And you're waving your arms with the guitar, and you're looking at the girls, and you're swinging your guitar. You're not really playing. So sometimes you'll hear the phrase someone will say, "That cat really can't play, but he's spending a lot of time throwing shapes." He's kind of putting out the visual and not the sonic. So in listening to you speak and looking at all of these shapes, I immediately kind of adapted that what you were saying to musical knowledge and language and patterns and how you can play something and someone can really understand it just by the shape of it. And listening uh, to a shape is what we're accustomed to as musicians, but I was also learning in Africa about how to see shapes. or sometimes were playing with the hunters. If I was playing something too fast or too slow, they would make a movement like this, oh, maybe I'm too loud, or maybe I had to learn the first couple of times, but no one told me to stop playing or to. They would look at me and do a movement. And after getting it wrong about 4 or 5 times, I quickly learned what those movements meant, the basic ones. So this is how you're playing in a group, because with drummers, the most fascinating drummers in Mali for me were the wedding drummers. They were the most frightening, meaning they played the best I've ever heard in my life. And my first day of being in Mali, they were rehearsing outside my hotel in an alley, and it just sounded like Jesus Christ came down and played drums with all of his mates. It was incredible. So I went to the window and I'm like, "What's going on here?" And I said, "Oh man, you want to come with us?" So I went. My first 2 weeks in Bamako, I only went to weddings 2 or 3 times a day because I was following these cats and recording them, because they had all of these things they were doing. The bride is coming, different shape. The groom is coming, different shape. The bride's dad is coming, different shape. The groom's mom is coming. And they had all of these cues, so they knew who was coming in, getting ready to enter the space. It's so fascinating just to watch them and hear that. So on some level, Saki, down the line, I'd like to get together with you and collaborate on that. But my question to you is, um, did you come up with, or any of your students, just academically or improvised ways of those symbols relating to sound and not just to, is there anything that you came across that there was, since you were into music so much, like we have signs for treble clef and bass clef and sharps and flats and flat 13s, there's all of these kind of codes from music. Was there anything in your research or your history or your students' research where there was a direct connection to music?
Yeah. Um, I in one of my books, my library books on Africa, right, I discovered that the Mbuti um, from the rainforest in Congo,
Hmm.
um, the men play these drums, right? These rhythms, these, I guess, patterns or whatever. And the women on back cloth, they use pigments that they make from flowers and the roots and stuff, different colors, right? They'll be drawing what they hear the man playing on the drums on
Wow.
back cloth.
Wow.
And there are those images. I can share those images with you.
Yeah, and
If
the cloths are they used later for something, after the work is done, or the cloth is used in any ceremony, or you take it home, and what's the.
uh, I guess, in Africa, people don't really have that practice of like making something and then hanging it up on the wall.
Mhm.
It's used maybe in ceremonies, you know, um, later on. But it got me to thinking that if people put their minds to it, and I think you're the kind of guy that can put his mind to this, we can create an African notation.
Yes, yes. Well, one of the drummers that I find is completely profound to this day is Dudu Rose. And Dudu Rose is a Senegalese. He passed away, transitioned. He's a complete outstanding master drummer. That Max Roach, by the way, told me I need to check out, which was kind of interesting. But if you watch Dudu, and anyone on the call can look him up, he has these signals where he puts the stick on the drum, which means play very soft. It's soft, and I've seen him play 40 times, and it's soft as if someone's turning down a volume. And he has these moves that he does to cue. The drum group already is fascinating already as is, but I found watching him over a period of time, some of the cues he would do with his stick, those things across. And then I'll share it with you later. I was able to meet him and go into the studio and record with him. I wanted to record drum set when I was in Senegal one time, and I told the engineer, when his foot comes into the door, you push record, and you record the whole day. And when he walks out of the studio, then you turn it off. Leave the record button on at all times. And I was learning the patterns incorrectly because I was putting them in the Western, thinking the one was here, and he would ask me via translation, what did I want to learn? And there were 8 particular ones I wanted to learn that I filmed. And I was totally wrong with all the patterns and where they started. And then when he corrected me, it was even more difficult to play. But he was fascinated with my electronic instruments. So I have a video of uh, of him playing the drums you heard in those visuals, those electronic drums with the effects. I have a video of Dudu and Dai Rose playing these drums with his indigenous stick and getting reverb and delays. And he was it was fascinating to see a gentleman with that amount of information and talent and history sit down on an electronic instrument designed in 1995 and play it totally different from myself or anyone that I've ever seen. And his comment after he played it, he told his drummers, go get me one of these. You know? And
Yeah. Well,
but this is what I mean. I wish I could have I recorded it, but I had it on my phone because it took him maybe 3 seconds to figure out how it worked. Maybe 3 seconds. And he did something with it I would have never have dreamed to do with the sounds and the delays. Totally different approach.
well, I mean, it reminds me of I visited these guys in Harare who did this typography. Well, they used they hand lettered the stuff
Yes.
on newsprint, and then they would cut it out and then silk screen it. Okay, and it was beautiful.
Wow.
I love that. But when I asked them what they would like, because it was a time when I used to travel back and forth the US, I said, what would you like for me to bring you from America, right? They said computers. They said, bring us computers. I said, why? I said, well, it makes it easy. But I said, what's so beautiful about your work is that it's hand done,
Yes.
right? And using this rudimentary way of silk screen, making the template and then pasting it onto the screen and then using the colors to squeeze it through. It's beautiful, But they say they wanted computers, and they don't do it anymore. It's very sad. Now they use computers, and the work is dead. It has no soul whatsoever.
Yes.
You know?
Same with music. The same with
Yeah,
music. It's the
yeah,
same thing with music. I feel that way
yeah.
with how music is composed now and how writing out notation and write it out. I mean, I used to get graded on how my note. I failed the music test once because my teacher thought my sharps and flats didn't look properly. They weren't properly written on the paper in the right section. All my work was correct, but I failed because so there's that element of it. But an experiment I would like to try to do, Saki, is I'd like to send you a bunch of patterns. Some of them are my own invention, some of them are combinations, and see after you listen to them what type of graphic would come out of those 8 bars or those 16 bars. I'm really curious, just as a mission to send you, not telling you where it is, not telling you the name of it or where it's from, and just send you maybe 8 or 10 samples of 8 bars or 4 bars of a pattern, and then just to ask you to write or what notation assimilates to this sound. I'm very interested because now I'm kind of on the cutting edge after listening to you speak about the immediacy of the immediacy of creation. And sometimes when you have a lot of time to work on something, you go back and you spend 5 years on a painting, you're always adding a color or you're taking something away. And for me, an example, there were some tunes I just wrote, like Living Color's most famous song is called "The Personality." That song was literally written quickly. Um, we were talking about politics. We were setting up in rehearsal. we were talking about what makes people follow people. What makes is the same energy for someone to follow Hitler, that follow Gandhi, or to follow Dr. King. Like what's in that? What's in the energy of following people? What makes someone a cult of personality? What and why do we? So we were just talking about that, and then the riff came in, the drum, and the song was written almost in 5 minutes. And that's like an immediacy thing of not focusing on it's time to write songs. We were setting up for rehearsal, and it went from tune to chat to conversation to riff to lyrics to bam, a song. And we felt it after it was done, like, whoa, something happened here. So I would like to send you something and get both definitions from you if that's not too much to ask. One would be an immediate one, and one would be after sitting with the pattern for a while, what would be what would be your definition?
Well,
Of-
well, actually, I have another idea.
okay,
I have a twist to that idea, and that is send me those samples, right?
yeah,
And I'll get some musicians from here, musicians who are not schooled in the Western manner, right?
okay,
To listen, and I'll give them some paints and brush and everything, and for them to draw what they hear.
wow, no problem.
Because I'm tainted.
Wow, that's a
I'm
fantastic idea.
I'm totally tainted by the Western world. You know what I mean? I I would hear Sun Ra maybe
I understand. I
in
understand.
something, whereas
I
these guys
understand.
will don't know anything about that stuff. You know what I'm saying? I think it'll be more powerful that way.
I love that idea, and you'll be getting some things from me shortly.
Cool.
It's just this is a great collaboration and a concept for me to
Yes.
um, to get. Maybe we'll come up with a new rhythmic language,
Yes.
actual
I would
diatonic
love that.
academic language. We don't have
Yeah.
to deal with the same hertz anymore and the do re mi fa sol la ti do vibe or the C sharp. Maybe we'll have something with another
Yeah.
name for it,
Yeah.
and it could be for a pattern or a chord or an improvisational piece. I think
Yeah.
that would be an interesting
Great.
road to travel on.
Yeah.
Thank you both. This is incredible to listen to and tap into. So we have about 15 more minutes. I have questions for both of you that are process related, but I'm gonna hang on to that in lieu of the guests here. So, we have some major music heavy hitters in here too, and some scholars. There's Kenneth Bilby is in here. I'm not sure, Professor Bilby, if you'd like to you know, speak. And Adam, if you want to say anything, but I'll just open up the floor for a moment.
Petra, let me say something first too.
Yeah, Danny, please.
I think the schools that Will went to in Recife, you called it what? Do Malungo?
Darue, Darue,
Uh-huh.
Darue Malungo,
You
MAL.
know, but the reason I'm asked was because the word Malungo is a condensing of the Kikongo phrase Mu Alungo, means in the same boat, and it means like
Wow.
a brother. It was one of the term for people who felt they had a brotherhood from coming from Africa together. And I think of you and Saki as Mu Alungo. You know, brothers from the same boat. So it's really beautiful.
Thank you, Danny. Coming from you especially. Thank you, man.
Yeah.
Anyone
Petra,
else?
did you invite Ken or Renee? Because we
Renee,
have Renee McLean also
Renee sent me
to
a
say
message.
something.
Come on, Renee, come on too. Yeah, Kenneth. Is Adam there? Hey, Adam.
Yep. Everybody's shy today.
Hey, Will, this is Jerome Page.
Hey, Jerome.
How you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you?
Great. Well, I just want to say thank you for sending the email yesterday. And I said definitely I'm going to tune in and listen in or watch through the Zoom. So it was more than I expected. I came to your work late in life. So
It's
and
okay.
then
As long as you came, as long as you arrived.
I arrived and listening to Saki talk about creating different typesets and different fonts and the whole notion of transforming what I call the inexpressible into expressible ideas. I found it very, very interesting and also something that will give me some things to think about. And I'm not a designer, but I'm more of a writer in how to take some of those same concepts to work on my language. So thank you, Saki.
And for those of you online, you got to follow Jerome. He's a heavy writer, and he wrote some very interesting pieces, even not to get too political. When I was out with Joe Lovano, we were playing at Kennedy Center, and that was right at the time when the Kennedy Center was going to close, or they weren't sure, and folks were getting fired. Jerome, honestly, and I kind of just met him at the time, wrote a beautiful piece because he said, Calhoun, I wasn't going to come in protest of what's happening. And I told Jerome, we weren't going to play in protest of what was happening. But he wrote an exquisite piece about the experience of going and what it meant, and our art and politics and how they're trying to control it. So he has fantastic things on his site, and anyone on this page, I think, would love what Jerome's doing. So thanks for tuning in, Jerome.
Thank you.
Can I just say something to Jerome? You say that you're not a designer at all, but you're a writer, right? But why I showed Adlam is that the amazing thing is it was invented by two young brothers. The one was 14, the other one was 11. And they felt the need for their language to have a writing system, and they did it. So anyone can do it, really. You don't have to be a designer.
Thank you. And I'm working on it as we speak.
Great. Great.
Better if you're not a designer.
I got a question. Well,
yes,
but I'm sorry. When it's time.
No, now it's okay now.
Now, okay. No, I didn't want to jump.
Come on, Adam, bring it.
Well, bring it. So, Will, I was sorry you missed. You can go back and look. Danny and I, Dawson and I, shared one of these a while ago, and one of the things that I taught. I mean, and luckily, thanks to Petra, everything is available. But one of the things I talked about, and this is leading up to my question for you. In 1977, I went to the Dogon, which was and spent quite a bit of time there. Which was a lot harder to get to back then, by the way.
Sure.
Anyway, but my question is sort of about mathematics and language, and I don't know if you were aware, but I wanted to share something that I think has always been significant to me. Is the Dogon, they have they call the male energy is the 3 energy, right? And the female energy is even, or 2 or 4. They call the male energy nya and the female energy todo. And there's a proverb, which I'm paraphrasing, that says every rhythm is a marriage and an interplay between the male and female energy. So that leads me just sharing that. That's been a touchstone for me all these years, thinking about Shiva Shakti in India. Shiva male is also 3. Shakti is 2. In Taoism, yang, male energy is 3, female energy is 2. So leading up to my question, I just wondered if you could just speak a little bit more. You touched on it, but more about your, I too, my research has been ongoing for 50 some years, and I'm always interested to hear how do you think about the relationship between mathematics and language in terms of rhythm? And I would include in that the other part, which is dance, right? I think we have movement. So I was just wondering more about what kind of things you've discovered and how you think about it, how you approach it.
Well, thanks, Adam. It's a great question. I began approaching it, I'm going to say, within the same scope. My sister is a fantastic dancer who danced with Alvin Ailey, Forces of Nature, and Martha Graham and a few other dance companies growing up here in New York. So I had that experience. I was a little bit intimidated by djembe players when I was younger. They were like, they just sounded like it was like a rifle machine gun organization that, and I heard all of the drumming. Growing up in the Bronx, I'm playing drum set, and I saw these cats, and I'm like, I don't think I'm ready for that. But, she's older than me, so I used to go to her classes when I was younger, but it inspired me. The electronic ambient stuff that you saw me do was me looking at dance. That I got, to be honest with you, Adam, I got inspired to do those pieces fully behind your question. Dance, rhythm, and this kind of time in the science. That's where the rhythm art concept comes from. So recently, Adam, maybe the last 15 years, I've been looking at it kind of as the same piece, because when you watch dancing, it is math, it is science, it is rhythm, and drumming is the same. And the technology is just basically gives me like a workstation. That's what I love about technology. I have all of these pedals and gadgets, and you can take those sequences and those ideas and you can run them through a system. Those systems give you new information. And that's kind of how I look at doing the research. But I'm interested in the last 15 or 20 years of looking at it the same way now. I look at a ballet dancer or an African dancer or even hip hop dancer or a tap dancer. I'm seeing all of these, I'm hearing all of these things. If you look at Nicholas Brothers or Sammy Davis Jr., and then even we know that they were great drummers, Philly Joe, Papa Joe Jones. There were guys that were great tap dancers as well. Ed Thigpen,
Roy Haynes.
Right? So like it's for me, it's this what I had to do in thinking about what Saki's doing. I had to kind of unlearn being in the West, because here we're taught a lot about individuality in art. You know, theory is separate from improvisation, is separate from jamming, is separate. They separate all these kind of things. When Adam, you and I know, you need all of those things to become a great musician. You have to jam. You have to also look at the academic side if you're going to be playing for someone else. Someone may write something they want you to play. So I look at the science and the dance and the rhythm as one voice. And my research is in looking at it as one voice. If I'm looking at a dancer, I'm still hearing drums and I'm still seeing math at the same time. It used to be separate before I began this research. Now it's one piece of information that I can look at and I can gather. I can get totally inspired a drum solo by looking at an equation or looking at a dancer or going to a foreign film. Sometimes with the foreign languages, I love Brazilian Portuguese. I love the way it sounds. It's all of these cutoffs and tone changes in a sentence that, even when they say maracatu, maracatu, we say maracatu. They say maracatu. It just sounds sexy and romantic and expensive just saying it. So like that concept for me is important in combining all the things together, where Adam, early on in my study, I went to look at dance as dance and drumming as drumming and math as math. And then more recently, I just really put them all in together. And my experimentation is what Petra showed. A lot of it, I'm looking at visuals and sound and how take me out of those art pieces. I don't want to see the drum set on my face or me. I want to just see the streaks and I want to hear the sounds. Now we have another equation there where the sounds created those streaks or vice versa. Nothing to do with sambas and funk and jazz and Mozambique beats. Forget the titles for a minute. Let's just deal with the academic images and the spirituality of it. That's a huge side of the research as well too, is the spirituality of it.
The humanistic quality is of course transcendent and is prior to all of these cultural constructs. I just wanted to say, it's interesting. I have my whole little pedals here. I've been since 1975. I've been also, but you know what's interesting? I just wanted to add, I'm curious what Saki thinks about this too. To me, the high-tech, an example of a high-tech instrument is like the kalangu or the iya, what's called the talking drum. You were talking about the language of maracatu, how maracatu, the talking drum, what's called the talking drum, is a incredibly high-tech instrument in that the design of it, I mean, what genius or generations of geniuses figured out, right, to change the pitch. Yep. It's high-tech because, and I think in a way that what we're doing is reaching for that, because it's high-tech because the technology is completely in harmony and in service with the musical function or the linguistic function or the dance function. And we're still, I think, the technology we deal with, especially post-digital, is we're like playing catch-up all the time. It's beautiful, yeah. The experimentation. But that to me, or the mbira, is a high-tech instrument because it's who thought of that, and that works in a way that is completely in harmony with the musical and spiritual intention of what it's for. That's high tech, right? Yeah.
That's the real definition of it. I mean, the technology is old in many ways. People design things to try to help you move forward on things that already exist. So it's
Okay.
not new in a sense when they say it's new technology. It's not new. The technology is coming because someone discovered that talking drum and to say, how can I put that talking drum on a piano or on a key or on a computer? So they're
Right.
taking what was already futuristic, in my opinion, and they're trying to adapt it in a new way to make us move. It's already forward. Most of what I learned in the last 35 years of research is old, 25,000 years old, 10, those wedding beats, all that stuff is
Yeah.
old.
The
When
further you go
I
back,
learned from the hunters, it's really, really, really old. So it's interesting to hear these patterns and these rhythms and then realize, oh, so a bit of this was bitten off to give you the New Orleans kind of a feel,
yeah.
shuffle. You know, same thing harmonically with instruments when you go into the desert and you hear cats play guitar or balafone and these kind of things. So that culture and those things are advanced, in my opinion. The technologies, I think, a fun way. I look at the technology as marrying it, not as, excuse me, marrying the technology to the ancestral side to create a new, in Saki's vibe, like a new kind of a textured language to speak. One doesn't output the other, but certainly technology is never, in my opinion, going to destroy the indigenous sides of any art form. Never. That's my opinion. That
You're,
you can always borrow and say AI and all this kind of stuff is great. A talking drum player is a talking drum player. A computer is not going to, a master talking drum player can't be
No,
touched by any
no,
computer or any program. It's not humanly possible, especially if you put even if you take a robot and put it in front of the dancer, the talking drum player watching the dancer playing is already 50,000 years ahead of what we're programming and playing right now.
well, there's a way. I have a photographer friend, Nordina Wawarani, who's talking about all you photographers can relate. I think everybody can relate to this idea of analog, pre-digital working, as a photographer. He said it's like you have to learn how to make bread with your hands. I mean, it comes back to like the vibration of the hand right on the drum or the stick on the drum. That's advanced information if you're ready to receive it. That's what Sun Ra was always talking about. And I think you're right. I mean, Max Roach used to talk about, that we know every generation has to reflect their experience. We can't pretend it's 25,000 years ago. You study everything you can study and connect to it spiritually, intellectually, but we have to create the music that is from our heart and our experience today, right? I mean, you can't ignore the technology, right? It's a tool anyway. It's not the thing. It's just a tool, right?
Salad dressing.
I have a question about writing systems. The first place I went to in Africa was the Bamoun in Cameroon. And I'm curious as to what's happening with their writing system. Does anybody use it? Is it still maintained? What's
Yeah.
it now?
When I was doing research for my book, um, I found an old clipping of an article in the New York Times. I think in like 90, 97, 98, and I kept it. And it was about the Bamum Kingdom and the writing system they created, written by Howard W. French. And so I clipped it and I kept it. So when I started to seriously think about writing a book, the first country I visited was Cameroon because I wanted to meet the king. And I ended up getting there. And I flew into Douala, then I went to Yaoundé, and then from Yaoundé, I took the bus to Fumban. And I had framed that article So I asked to meet the king, to actually meet him, not just to see him. And I was introduced to him, and I gave him the gift, and he said, "Oh, thank you very much. We never saw this. Mr. French um, promised to send us a clipping, but he never did. So thank you very much for bringing this to us." The palace that the king, the grandfather, built is now a museum, and with all the things about Bamum culture, the writing and everything. So that writing system is taught at the palace. There's a school there for teaching it. The one thing that hasn't happened is for it to go nationwide, right? So it's just a thing for the Bamum people. So now comes Google, and there are not typefaces. They have Bamum um, font as a font. So now anyone, anywhere in the world can actually use it. So it's actually a beautiful thing. Although I am a little bit suspicious about Google's intentions to do this, to create these Noto fonts that are free. I'm always suspicious, of things that are considered free. There's always behind everything that's like that, there's always some kind of like, okay, so now who owns it?
Yeah.
Google does own it. Google owns it now. All those writing systems, we can celebrate them that they're now available digitally on computers, but who owns them? And I think that's where the rub is, really. That's the point. Like, in the future, who's going to own all the intellectual property?
It's a great question.
Especially things African. We're so very happy to always say, oh, now our thing is in Paris. Look at how this and that designer is using the shopping bags that are used by women in Africa to make handbags and everything. So now they own it. You don't own it. You created it, but you don't own it. That's where the question is. I think that's an issue.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. And I just wanted to, before we conclude, call on Dr. Bilby, who was saying that he has something to say. We'll see if his microphone is working, but Kenneth Bilby is one of the, fundamental researchers in Jamaica, especially on the Congo foundations. So Saki and Dr. Bilby was saying that if his microphone is not working, that he'll get in touch with you guys.
Okay.
Yeah. Kind of very
Sorry
curious.
about that, but sure, looking forward to it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for being here. Danny, anything else?
No, I just want to thank Will and Saki for that. As a disclaimer, I met Saki when he was a student at Yale. I was actually introduced to him by Lisa Jones, Baraka's daughter and Kelly Jones' sister. So it's really funny. I'm glad to see people here together. Also just to see Saki and Will work together is really inspirational. So.
It's incredible. Some profound insights today. So the next salon is on August 22nd. So we meet once a month. And the conversation is between an artist and a scholar. And it's actually a presentation that I'm doing titled Rumba, Writing and Sculpting in Air. And my dissertation was on rumba, called Rumba, A Philosophy of Motion, with Professor Thompson as my advisor. And it actually combines my photography as well as research, so it's hybrid work. And I'll be speaking with one of my great dance collaborators from New York City, Raka James, who's a crumper, but also a dance leader. He has his own platform called Rounds of Flame, and he's going to take us into so-called street dance culture of New York City, which is the research that I've been doing for the last 5 years. So very much looking forward to that. So that's August 22nd. The website is www.rftmi.org. We accept donations. We have some merch. It's actually going to get updated and get beautiful and interesting. Marusia Kazakova is doing the designs. She's formerly of the brand Junkoi. She does a lot of incredible work. But why do we do it? For the love. How do we do it? By any means necessary. So please spread the word. And thank you to everyone for being here. Thank you to Will and Saki for their generous presence and knowledge. So thank you, thank you. We will see you next time, August 22nd.
Thank you, Petra.
Peace
Thank
and love.
Yeah. Thank you.
I have a comment before we go.
Yeah.
Thanks to Petra for all of this. Danny is someone who has given me lots of information during my travels. I didn't do all that stuff on my own. I am, with all of the research, putting together a book, and I'm going to get back to you guys on that. And it's a work in progress, The Secret Life of Beats, and that's going to be similar to what you saw earlier today. But check my Instagram out, Will Calhoun Drum, on my website. Thanks, Petra, for inviting me, not only for this, but also to be a board member. This is a fabulous idea. And thanks to you, I had an opportunity to meet Robert Ferris Thompson at Dr. Preston's home. So once again, thank you very much. But
and you came to the class too, and
right, that's right. That's right. I attended the class up at Yale. That's right. I did go.
He said, "Let her rip," and the student was confused. What? Means press play. Okay. Anyway, Saki, what are you working on? Where can people find you?
Yeah. Well, like I said, now I have Starlink, so I'm just a click away, I think. Petra, you can share my contacts with anyone who needs them. I'm on WhatsApp, I'm on email, I'm on Instagram, etc., LinkedIn. And what I'm working on now is the second edition of African Alphabets, the book, because since my book now is old, it came out in 2004, and there has been just like incredible activity on the continent of people designing writing systems, people designing typefaces. And in my book, I say that I look forward to the day. In fact, I think I said I dream of the day when young Africans can take this work forward by creating new typefaces, new writing systems, and digitizing them for the world to use. And that's happening right now as we speak. So that book is really necessary for people to understand what's going on. A lot is happening.
Incredible, because there are even people in the chat asking about your book. And of course, I teach it all the time in my courses, and it's incredible to hear that there's a updated version. And it was incredible to see today all of the young designers, so thank you so much. Thank you. All right. So August 22nd, till next time.